the agenda was pulled from the consent agenda. 2021-2022 lottery funds. It's a recommendation that the board approve the application for the release of $4.75 million from the Public School Building Capital Fund, North Carolina Education Lottery distributions for the 2021-22 school bond referendum debt service expense. I know this is something that we do annually. Board Member Bellamy Small, you pulled that from the consent agenda. Do you have a question or context you'd like requested before we open it for discussion?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I am not supporting this, and my reason is because the lottery funds, unless I'm, been misled for the last, when did this pass? 2006. 2006 was supposed to come to the schools, and Angie Henry and I have done the research and pulled articles and everything. And the last count, I think there may be three states that really use their lottery money directly to the schools. We should be getting this money, which would help with the deferred maintenance. Plus, if we limp along with the bond, this is 2021. We're going to be in 2050 before we finish these schools. That's ridiculous. Most of us won't even be here. Our great-grandchildren won't be here. So my reason for pulling was simply to express that I think that we should at least ask the county commissioners to give us a portion. Because if you've been paying down a debt since 2010,
2008 is when...
Okay. We've been paying down this debt for however many years that is, 12 years. There should be some portion of that we should be able to get out of this $4,750. I've proposed it before. I just feel like that there should at least be an ask for us to get 20% of this money. If it would help. It's not going to fix Allen J, because if the floor is sinking, that's a whole rebuild. But it might help us instead of us having to keep asking for some of the maintenance money that we've not gotten. So, let somebody else. I'll move it now, but I'm not going to vote for it. Or if that's not appropriate, somebody else can move it. So,
are there other comments or questions? But yeah, Board Member Sharpe.
What's our outstanding bond debt?
So the county hasn't issued their capper for June 30th, 2021 yet, but their outstanding bonds payable at June 30th, 2020 was $693.8 million. That's not all related to schools. They don't have it broken
that was
out
my
that way.
question.
Right.
Yeah, how much of that is ours?
we don't know.
Are there other comments or questions from board members?
They're probably still paying on the jail.
Are there other comments from board members? Linda, thank you.
Well, how do we know that we're paying off school debt and not other bond debt? Would be my question.
So in their budget for the 2022 school year, the county does break out the debt service, how much they're paying in principal and interest by purpose. And so when you look at that, at the total $93.2 million that they're going to pay in debt service, which is, again, the principal and interest for this year, $68.5 million of that is for Guilford County Schools debt. So they've broken out the debt service. I just can't find the amount of the bonds that are specific to Guilford County Schools.
And what was that debt service figure?
68.5 is related to Guilford County Schools. 93.2 is the total.
Go ahead.
I would just think there would be a better way for us, when you have a mortgage on your house, you know exactly how much you owe. And so, when we continue to pay this, I'm like, I don't feel comfortable. I can go to my mortgage company and say, what's the payout? Can we do that?
I could ask them, but the way these bonds work, they issue the bonds and then they do refunding and they do all kinds of things that I don't know if they track it, how much they do by school once they issue just a general obligation bond. I can ask them if that's, if that's the case. But again, their total debt at June 30th, 2020 for their total bonds payable was about $8 million.
I want to ask one more question. Do we know, is there ever a point, if we continue paying this for another 10 years and took no more bonds out, would we ever know whether we got it totally paid for?
So, yeah, they amortize their bonds usually over 20 years. So the last bond, well, the last time voters approved bonds for Guilford County Schools was in 2008. But that doesn't mean that's when the county.
2020, 300 million.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. But those haven't been issued yet. I do know that those haven't been sold yet. So I don't know when the last sale of the 2008 approved bonds were. But from what that date is forward 20 years is what their expected payoff time is.
So Pat, go ahead.
Yeah, just back to the, when is the issuance of the 300 million from 2020?
So that'll be when we start, the county decides how they want to fund us. I mean, they've approved the project ordinances, and, they can get cash in multiple different ways to fund our expenses, what we've spent to date. In prior bond issuances, sometimes they've done a line of credit until we get to a certain amount, and then they'll issue debt to try to minimize the issuance cost. And try to take advantage of the interest rates, when they drop. So they work very hard to do it when it's most advantageous for the citizens of Guilford County, and when they need the cash, right? So.
Yeah, board members, remember that just because a bond referendum passes doesn't mean they're obligated to issue all those bonds. It is an available source of funds for them. But
Thank you, Jill. Linda, do you have one final question?
Well, I was just going to make the point that what we need to go after is the state to get more lottery money. I mean, because that's what it was for, okay? I mean, the fact that we are getting shortchanged, where we're really getting shortchanged is at the state level on lottery, that they sold this as building schools. So I'm just going to say we can point our finger at the county commissioners, but where we're really getting shortchanged is when the lottery was initially advertised as being going to be utilized, and we're getting a very small percentage of that massive amount of money, and it really doesn't impact drastically helping us rebuild our schools. That would be my point.
Board Member Jenkins moved the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Kim Irby seconded it, so we can vote. Linda, I'm an aye.
We're voting to move. Go ahead and.
Item C, as written on the consent
That's
agenda.
What I need to know.
Yep.
And you are?
Yes. Dina?
Yeah.
Kim?
Yeah.
Is that everybody? Oh, it's up there. I'm sorry. It passes 8-1.